Hello everybody, this is Bronislava. I have a blog, HandMadeRukodelky, where I post some patterns. I have this channel where I teach you how to knit and crochet. And on top of it, I decided that I will be doing some podcasts. I invited 3 of my friends. One is a knitter, one is a designer, and one is a store owner with yarn. And I think that our first podcast, which is this in this video, what you're gonna go and experience it very soon, it was just great to go and discuss anything about knitting, anything about yarn, and beyond. So if you are interested in learning something, please watch this video.
Hi, I'm AFIFA.
Hi, I'm Lene.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
And hi, I'm Bronislava. And we are the YARNTASTIC 4. This is our podcast, and this is our first podcast, and I hope you will enjoy it. And we're gonna go and first talk a little bit about ourselves. Then maybe we will discuss something what we would like to go and do in each podcast. So let's go and start with AFIFA. AFIFA, can you go and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. I am originally from Pakistan, and I moved to the US about 25 years ago for college. I went to school in the Midwest in Kansas City, and then I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area a long time ago. And now I live here in the beautiful Bay. I'm a knitwear designer and a teacher as well. And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Now I would like to go and move to Kelly. Kelly, can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Kelly, and I live in beautiful Pacifica, California, which is about 7 miles south of San Francisco. But I always say that it's like 1,000,000 miles away. This is the type of place where if you aren't wearing your pajama bottoms in the grocery store, you're kind of fancy. So it's a very, very laid back kind of beachy town. And my kind of background, I grew up in Southern California. I went to college on the East Coast to study international relations and Spanish. A very long story that I won't get into now. I ended up as an exchange student in Wales, of all places. And I met my husband. We got married 2 days after I graduated from college. I emigrated to the UK. So I lived in Wales ostensibly from the age of 20 all the way for 20 years. And when I was living in the UK, I got into the publishing industry. Totally not related to my major, but whatever. And I was the group publisher for video games and technology publications. So I did Official Xbox Magazine, PlayStation Magazine, and I was the publisher for Nintendo Power here when I came to the US. And then my father passed away. I moved back home to California. My husband emigrated. We just did a reverse, it's kind of our midlife crisis thing. And I'm still working for the same publishing company, still video games and technology. I had the opportunity to launch Molly Makes. This was the brainchild of one of my colleagues in the UK, Catherine Radricht, and I had the benefit of being able to launch that here, which was my foray into the fiber industry, apart from the fact that I'd been a knitter for many years. My mother-in-law taught me. You cannot escape sheep in the UK. Well, particularly Wales. Wales is the land of sheep. There are about 3 million people and about 9 million sheep. So you're surrounded by sheep and sheep culture. And I'd always wanted to open up a shop. And I finally just became brave. My 401k is surrounded in the yarn in my shop. So it's like, and then I always wanted to launch my own line of yarn. I had this in my head, like the ideal yarn. So it's ideal for me. I hope it's ideal for a lot of other people too. But I recently launched my own yarn line as well as the shop.
Hi, my name's Lene. I am in the Mid-Atlantic region, just outside of DC. I have been knitting and crocheting for about 2 to 3 years now, it feels like. Definitely delved hard into knitting about a year ago. I am graduate of Eastern colleges in the area, up north in Maine and in Virginia. Background is conflict analysis and resolution. Helps really well with the industry that I'm now in. And I just love to knit and buy yarn, unfortunately, probably too much. But I love the camaraderie of the community, finding new friends in the area at the yarn stores, and definitely virtually finding you guys and other folks in the community.
So let me go and tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Bronislava. Many of my regular fans know me, and I don't think really they know much about who I am or where I came from or whatever. So let me go and tell you. In 1989, no, I'm very sorry. 82, I came to United States. 1982, I came to United States. 1989, I became an American citizen. So I've been here for many, 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 many years. Absolutely loved coming in here and experiencing completely different life. Sometimes it was very difficult. Sometimes it was fabulous, like always in any country. And I think that I don't know if you, Lina, lived anywhere beside where you live or in the area in United States. But Kelly can go and attest that it can be difficult and easy living overseas. And same AFIFA, right? AFIFA, you were asking me a question. What was the question?
How you started teaching?
I was at some meeting in one library, how I started teaching knitting, right?
Yes.
I was at some meeting with friends, and it was art friends. And the manager of the library approached me because I said that I also knit and crochet. And he said, would you please teach knitting? And I said, sure. And I was there about 4 years until they didn't have any more funds. So I started teaching because somebody asked me to. Now, Kelly, you want to ask me a question also.
Yeah, I think you've answered part of it, but I really was curious about your background and just kind of getting to know your story.
That's right. I started that I immigrated I came to United States in 82, and I basically left Czechoslovakia. So I'm Czechoslovakian. Now it's 2 countries. And I left illegally through Yugoslavia. I was not really allowed to travel because they didn't want to lose people. So they really made it extremely difficult for people to leave, to go on vacation to other countries. People had money, but they could not go because they were not allowed, because they would leave and not come back. And in my case, it was the same. So I basically left illegally through Yugoslavia. I have kind of written my story, how and all the exciting happenings on the way, what happened to me when I was coming to United States. I have it kind of written, but never published it. And then when I came over here, spoke no English. And so I had to go and learn everything from start.
Wow.
I have a question for you, Bronislava. Your biggest influence in your life when it comes to knitting and crocheting, was that in childhood, adulthood? Who was that person?
Yes.
Was there a person?
My mom was a very heavy knitter and crocheter. And so I really basically learned since I was about 9 years old. And, we had, first I learned, of course, how to do it with needles. Then my mom also bought herself machines. And these machines were like heavy duty, perfect, really. One machine had 2 beds. And you could do fabulous designs on those machines. And one machine had only 1 bed. So that machine was just for simple knitting, but we used both simultaneously, and so it was fabulous. When I was doing a research on these machines, actually, a while ago, they are in United States. If you want to buy one of those, they are very, very, very expensive. I could not believe how much money they want for the ones that we called it 2 beds. It was like 2 machines in an angle, facing each other, and the needles are coming this way when you're knitting, and the head that you go zzz, zzz, that goes on both sides. It knits both. So that's what we had, and so I knitted, crocheted by hand. I was knitting for my brothers. I have 2 brothers. For my mom also sometimes, but she used to do lots of knitting just for herself, and for friends and family, and so I did lots of knitting, especially on those machines, because you could go and do much more and much faster.
Interesting.
I wish we lived nearer, because I was gifted a vintage machine that's like in pristine condition. I've absolutely no idea how to use it, and I just haven't had the time to break it out and have some fun with it. But it looks amazing.
Yes.
And complicated. It looks complicated. It
You should do
doesn't
a tutorial on that.
And is it just 1 bed machine? 1 bed.
Yeah.
Well, I bought a 1 bed machine here in the United States, and at Michael's, and it was very simple. I was not happy with that.
Yeah.
It was, excuse my language.
Let's start how we
I'm not
intend.
gonna say that word. It starts with C and ends with P.
I was going to say that was either a very mild one or it was going to be really bad.
Oh, so I used it a couple times, but I said, it is such a bad design. Very, very, very bad design that I really was not happy. Kelly, I wanted to ask you, you have the shop, and also I want to go and tell to all my fans and friends that I will be putting lots of links below the video in the description. So please click there and see all the links that really go and are about our podcasts. Okay, so I'll be putting links for AFIFA, links for Kelly. If Linnea wants to go and share any links, I'll share those too. Okay, but Kelly, how do you deal in your store with unreasonable clients?
Ooh, that's such a juicy one. We're going right in there.
Oh,
So, okay, so by and large, I have to say that our community, and I don't just mean Pacifica and the Bay Area fiber community. By and large, I think people who knit and crochet and have a passion for fiber are good people. I'm not really, you know, by and large, not everybody, but most. And so from that perspective, it makes it kind of easy. But I have to say, I've got two things that really get on my nerves. One is where people bring their children in with food and clearly have food on their hands, and they don't understand that, this is my precious fiber. And they're like, oh, have a look at all the pretty colors, so and so.
401k fiber.
My 401k fiber. They have no idea. And so it's like, don't touch the yarn, which, I love children, and I want people to come in and appreciate and enjoy it. But I really want them to have clean hands. So there's that aspect. And so I'm really, really, really careful as to which yarn, and I'll take it out if anybody's touched it. And I think that there might be, sticky fingers on it. So I actually have found my own voice over time. And I feel like it's kind of inappropriate, but because in any other circumstances, I just would never do it. But now I'm like, oh, sweetheart, we don't touch the yarn in this shop. If the parent isn't doing it, I do it. And I know it's not the best quality, but I do it. I have to. I've got to protect that yarn.
Yes.
So there's that. And then in our shop, in our community, we fiercely support our LGBTQIA community as well as our BIPOC community, where we try to be as safe a space as absolutely possible. So honestly, I have a zero tolerance policy. I have signs printed. I have basically rules of engagement if you're going to come and hang out, because we, when it's not COVID, we love to have people coming and hanging out at the shop. I have tea and coffee and water and snacks, and we want people to just come. I have a seating area, couch and chairs. That's part of the joy of being in a local community, and also the joy of sharing fiber, whether you're knitting or crocheting or embroidering, and hanging out. So, but I have a zero tolerance policy, and we've had 2 or 3 instances where I just said, look, I just don't think this is the place for you. So, thank you so much, and yeah, I think this just might not be your group, and that's hard. That's a really, really hard. That's a really, really hard
decision to stay.
Yeah, yeah, but you have to. So.
Yes.
Sticky fingers and bad people.
Yes.
A hard one.
Yes. I am myself a person where I like people who respect, who are tolerant, who don't do bad things to other people. It's just big turn off for me if somebody is not treating another human being well. Okay, so Linnea, I want to ask you something. So you said that you've been knitting about 2-3 years, or crochet, knitting, all that. Now, what influences you when you are looking for a new project?
Learning something new. It could be the color work, like a Fifa sweater that she's wearing now. To me, it's eye-catching, and it automatically forces me to say, I want to try that because it's different. For me, it forces me to say, can I try that? It's different. but is my skill level at the point where I could recreate that? For instance, my color work socks that I knit up. This
They're
was,
so great.
thank you. This to me, this was my very first color work. This was difficult because of the floats. It's very tight. It looks pretty on the inside, I think at least, but it was very tight. And to wear these now, it's somewhat uncomfortable, but that's what I look for, is something that will challenge me and push me. Otherwise, I will stick to plain old, and sorry for all the fuzz, but I wear my stuff. So I'll stick to plain old stockinette stitch, self-striping yarn, or just a plain yarn, and I'll just knit and knit and knit and knit, or I'll do purl stitches. Cable work, color work, I look for something that will definitely challenge me. And since I was able to get through the green and red heart socks, and I've done cabling, and I went and did a test knit for
Another
tennis
clap.
Yes, I did my first test knit for Tanis Gray, the author. This is her plated pullover sweater. This was a challenge, not difficult, but it was just a challenge for myself to get over the fact that I could actually do this, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm looking for in a pattern. And what I'm wanting next in a sweater for myself is a FIFA sweater, because that will push me to utilize. And FIFA, you have to tell me, does your sweater have, is that 3 colors or 4 colors going at once?
There's only ever 2 colors going at once.
Okay.
And it uses slip stitches, so you don't have to worry about the floats.
Okay, you have to explain that to me, because when I see the pattern and I start knitting, I know I'm gonna be like, what is this? See, that's the challenge that I want. That's the answer right there, Bronislava. I want something that will push me to the next knitting level. Yeah. And if you
We'll talk
were saying
about
that
it
slip
when you
stitch.
take a look.
I'm sorry, say again.
We can talk about it when you get a chance to look at the pattern and get your yarn and everything.
Yes, my royal bead yarn. Thank you, Kelly.
Very good. So now, AFIFA, what are you taking in consideration when you're designing?
Well, a lot of times I don't get to pick the yarn. So somebody will approach me and say, I have a new base or I have a new colorway, and I'd love for you to design something for me. So if I don't already have something in mind, I just ask them to send me the details of the yarn, and then we'll kind of talk about how much yarn they want me to use so that they can kit it up, or just, you know, the marketability of it. So for this sweater, for example, I used KELLEY's yarn and some Madeline Tosh, and this was left over from a shawl that I designed in KELLEY's yarn that Kelly is going to show us.
Oh, that's pretty.
Here. I had it right by me. It's been chilly. I'm gonna put it on. Isn't it gorgeous?
It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
So beautiful.
And actually, I have done that kind of that design, but I have to step away from my from my computer. So let's stop for a second.
What I love about AFIFA's design so much is the fact that it looks as fantastic on the outside as it does on the inside. It's just beautiful.
Yes.
Let alone the cozy factor.
It's like double-sided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you design it that way?
That is something that I think about a lot, is how it's going to look, especially with a shawl or a scarf, how the back of it is going to look. Because a lot of times the back doesn't look nice, and you can't not show it in a shawl when you're wearing it. It's going to move around and stuff. So it's nice to have both sides be really pretty.
Yeah. I did this a while ago.
Yeah.
And I actually, and these are those slip stitches that you used on your design.
Yeah.
I was trying to videotape how to do these slip stitches. And I noticed also, I think that when I was going through some images on internet, I think that I saw that Stephen West used some of these slips on his design. Have you noticed?
Yeah,
Did you see
one
that?
of his ones.
Yes, he did as well. But you were first, probably.
Well, I had already done my design and I was about to release it when his came out. But mine's a little bit different because I have each chain separated by a band of stockinette, and his are connected like in that hat that you just showed us.
When did he release it? Do you know?
Last month, I think.
Yeah.
The beginning of last month. It's around the same time that my shawl came out.
I have neighbors, and they had twins, girl and a boy, and so I knitted them as a hat. One was pink and one was blue, with exactly like this, except different colors. And then I was thinking, I should go and make a video. So I did this in January. Yeah. So like I said, it's like you start looking around and then suddenly everybody's thinking this in the same direction, when you're trying to design something. But I absolutely adore your sweater. I don't do big projects because it takes really long time. And when I'm making educational videos, it would take a really long time for me to post video on internet. It would just take too long, So I really have to really concentrate more on small projects than anything.
Well, I just had the sweater in testing, and one of my test knitters finished it in 10 days.
Wow.
Which is not something that I usually anticipate. I give them, I think about how much time to give them, and I'd given them all a month or up to 6 weeks for the bigger sizes, and they were so fast. They're all done in a matter of 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's great. Yes, that's great. Well,
Question,
you have to,
that...
with me, you have to consider not only to knit the sweater, but also to videotape it. As I am doing it, I have to go slower. Then download all the videos into the computer, then edit all those videos, then add all different little, sometimes some text, sometimes some images, whatever. It really is very time consuming for me to do a big project. So sometimes I do big projects and I cut them up into, into smaller videos, shorter videos.
AFIFA, you mentioned that it only took the test knitters 10 days. Is that attributed to your pattern being, I don't know if this is the right term, a sweater that's considered a quick knit, or is it the knitters and their skill level that's allowing them to just push through and barrel through within 10 days approximately? Is that the pattern? Is that your design? Or is it the person knitting?
Well, for this pattern in particular, I got a lot of positive feedback that it was really easy to read, and that it was really fun, because up until it's a circular yoke, and because it's cut into those little segments, it feels like you're taking big bites out of the project, because you can be like, oh, I'm going to do section 1 and section 2. And the feedback I was getting was just all this excitement about finishing each section. So every other day they'd be like, oh, I'm at section 4 already. And so they have just 2 more sections to go to finish the yoke. And I think it was just this really kind of fun, quick way to get through little segments, because the pattern is broken up into 6 or 7 pieces.
Oh, okay. I've heard
that
that
make sense?
before.
And also,
I've
even
heard
that
that
you
before
have
when
the
people say
segment,
this
they
quick
do
knit.
repeat a little bit, right? They repeat. Yes. Yeah. So once you go and learn each repeat, it's easier to do second repeat and then the third repeat. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's also the attention, not necessarily the attention span, but it keeps you engaged. That's what it is. The pattern keeps you engaged. I still have a shawl that's sitting on needles for a year. And it's not because it's not a beautiful shawl in the picture. It's just because it was so mind numbing to do 200 or 300 some stitches over and over. And there were little changes here or there. It was just there's something about it that I'm like, I've never just left a project to die on a set of needles. It also does not help. And I have a question for Kelly. It does not help with this shawl that I have on needles. I just cannot, I don't want to work on. Yarn that bleeds. When I knit with this shawl, or when I knitted with this shawl, my fingers and my nails turned like a Smurf. I was blue. What is that?
Okay, so that
And it's not your yarn. So just to make that quite clear.
No, but actually,
one second, Kelly. I just want to say this is why we're doing podcasts. This is a perfect question for Kelly, and I know what she's gonna say because. Okay, Kelly, talk.
So the yarn that I make is really, really, really soft. It's 18 micron fiber. I buy the bales, I source the bales and the fiber, and then I have it custom milled. And so it is non-superwash. Not that superwash prevents bleeding, but when you hand dye, particularly with natural dyes, and you're using anything that has blues, indigo in particular, for whatever reason, indigo is one of those dyes that just for almost forever bleeds. So whenever I have a base that a hank of yarn where there's a lot of indigo used, I always warn people the indigo is going to get all of your hands. It could potentially wreck your needles as well, permanently stain your needles. So it's just something to be mindful of. It should wash off your hands really, really easily. If I do like a double bath to make sure that that it's set with vinegar. Some people use a citric acid, which is also a natural food grade acid, to set their dyes. But usually with indigo, and it's a natural product, then you're going to get some on your hands, on your needles. If the dyer has done a good job, then it'll just be a small amount. And then once you give it its little eucalyptus bath or whatever wash you choose, theoretically that final little bath should be it if it's done well. But it's typical. It's to be expected. And it's also something that you should do, really, even like superwash coats the fiber with a little chemical to make sure that it doesn't felt, but it doesn't prevent bleeding. So whenever you're doing like stranded color work or blocks of color, or combining different colors together, it is always worth doing a swatch, finding out how that works on your hands, giving it a little bath, and seeing whether or not the colors are going to bleed into one another before you've done something as beautiful, say for example, as a Fifa sweater, only to find out that like I can see that she's got Carl Eats Blueberry Pie in the Sky in that particular one. Is that going to bleed into the Mad Tosh that is, and thankfully it didn't. So, but that's, it's to be expected. It's not unusual.
I will start doing that. I don't do swatches. I'm bad. But I will have to start doing that with some yarns.
so much time combining your color work, or and then if you found out that the color bled into the other and it just sort of destroyed the look, it's there are remedies, there are things that you can do in order to kind of like reset the dye, maybe for another episode, but yeah.
I'll need that answer, especially with self-striping yarn where it's already been dyed up. I did peppermint striped socks. That's just the way it knitted, red and then white over and over.
Yeah.
As soon as I washed it, that white turned pink.
Oh, that's not good. That's
No.
not good. The dyer should really know that, especially if it's a self-striping, but naughty dyer.
That just means I just buy
red is the
everything from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted very
Just to make
quickly,
sure I don't have that problem anymore.
I wanted very quickly share a story about this particular problem with color, the blue color, the indigo. My husband had a shirt, and it was white on the top, and it kind of faded to a darker shade all the way on the bottom. Beautiful shirt. I washed it, and some of the indigo got onto his top, so he had spots. Couldn't wear it, so we took it to dry cleaners. They took it all out, looked perfect, and ever since I always hand washed that particular shirt. I never put it into a washer. And every single time I washed it, I used vinegar to set it each time. And I think that we are now at the point that it may not even bleed, but it bled a lot of color out.
Yeah. Vinegar and heat. Heat is the component.
But with yarn, you have to be very, very careful with heat. Yeah.
Speaking of color, AFIFA, how do you come up with your color combination? I think you may have mentioned it earlier, but remind me. When it comes to your designs, do you have something when you're creating a pattern from scratch? Do you already have something in mind?
No. Like I said, a lot of times the colors are given to me. I do get some say, and I do collaborate with dyers on colorways. There's one in particular who did an entire series from my country for me, and for that one, I had come up with some inspiration photographs that I sent her, and then she dyed yarn based on those pictures, and I had already designed, it's this long cardigan that comes down to almost your ankles. And so for that one, I had a lot of say in the color, but a lot of times I don't. So, somebody will send me 3 different colors and that they think work well together, and I just have to work with it and make it look good. For myself, I tend to only pick blue yarn. So now what I do is, if I'm starting something from scratch that isn't being done for a dyer, I will not pick blue yarn. I will try and go towards colors that I'm not attracted to. So like these colors are not my normal colors. This is not something you would find in my closet, but I was like, I have to go outside my comfort zone and just pick colors that I absolutely would not. And they work so well together.
Beautiful. First of all, you have like a purplish blue, right, in there? Or
yes.
Purple, yellow. Those are very complementary colors. And then you have a white in there, or off-white.
It's like a pale mauve, and it's not a color I would pick normally, but it just kind of
it goes because it's light color, so it's almost neutral color. It almost, you can see it almost like a neutral color, and it complements the purplish shade in there. So I love the color combination. It's just absolutely beautiful.
The purplish shade is Kelly's yarn.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
See, these are the same stitch patterns in a totally different color.
Yes, look at that.
Interesting.
Look at that. Yes.
Love that. That's so fun and vibrant.
Thank you. Yeah, and these are not colors I would pick normally, but
Mm-hmm. And
you'll make them work.
I think that would be a good segue into the color theory question that I had a couple days ago last time we talked. I think, Kelly, you said that you have, being a yarn shop owner and dyer, that you could talk about color theory. You could answer my question about what do you do with color theory? Because I have no idea. I hear the term thrown around, but I'm like, what is it? And do I need to learn it? Will that help me?
Lina, I do have one more question for you, I think,
Okay.
over here. Let me see what I'm reading over here. Do you frog? Do you frog? Do you take your knitting apart?
I try not to, if I can help it, but mistakes happen. It is what it is. Actually, I frogged this, and I have a question for you guys. This is a sweater that I'm knitting for my oldest, almost to the underarm portion. And I had to, I don't know if it'll show up clearly, bad lighting. There we go. Do you see all the little bumps?
Yeah.
Okay, now if I keep going up, do you see the distinction?
Mm-hmm.
The bumpy part I ripped apart because it was too small. I had to add a total of probably an extra 20 some, I can't remember. Basically, I had to add an additional 10 inches. I had to go so far up in the pattern because I changed the yarn in the pattern. Originally, it calls for a worsted weight yarn. This is just fingering weight. So obviously, your gauge changes. The needles are totally different. These are size 2 something needles, where the original pattern calls for, I think, a size 4 or 5. So yes, when it comes to frogging, I don't like it, but I do. When it comes to frogging, when you get this bump effect, if I steam this, do you think the bumpiness of the frogging will go away? Will it become more subtle to blend in with the top that never came apart, that I didn't have to pull because I'm still knitting it up? Do you think that would help?
Well,
Just wet block it.
Yeah.
Say again?
When you wet block it, it'll
That
all.
scares me. I don't like wet blocking. I like steaming. Okay, I can't get anything to wet block right.
Wet blocking is so much easier than steaming. You just dunk it in a little bath, and it'll also get rid of the excess dye.
Okay.
And then just lay it flat to dry. And you're good.
See, I did that with a shawl, and then it turned everything different colors in. Well, see, this is all black, so it won't make a difference. But the yarn itself had different colors, so everything bled together in cold water with that
Eucalyptus.
Thank you, Eucalyptus soap. But then it smelled also. It smelled like sheep, like wet doggy sheep.
I will tell you something. It will.
Smelly. It's like my kids were like, "What is that smell?" And they're on the very top level of this massive 3-level townhouse that we're in, and I'm like, "How can you smell it?" They're like, "It smells like farm. What are you doing?" I was like, "It's just sitting in water. It's literally buried, and it was just a shawl." But the whole house smelled like farm world. That's why I don't like blocking. I don't like wet blocking.
No,
if I steam it keeps the scent down.
Okay, I love that smell so much. Like,
I don't mind it as long as it's not so pungent. And once I put this thing in water, it just bloomed smell everywhere in the house. I didn't want to wear it afterwards. I couldn't get the smell to die down.
You can get the eucalyptus, where you can get like a eucalyptus or a lavender or grapefruit. You don't have to go with like an unscented. That will help. And the bleeding, really, like, again, theoretically shouldn't happen, often.
It was dyed properly.
Okay. Yeah, theoretically, apart from the indigo, which is there's some others too, but wet blocking is magic.
Is it?
And I have a little trick, which is that you put It is. And it is easy. And AFIFA's totally right. And it'll, you know, it hides a multitude of sins. But I have a little secret that I do. Well, it's not really a secret. Somebody told me. But I put saran wrap over my blocking mats. Now, you would think that that would make it so that it didn't dry as quickly, but it actually is the reverse of that, because there isn't any moisture that goes into the mats at all. It helps it to evaporate that much more quickly. So that's my top tip.
So you're putting saran wrap on the bottom, and then you put saran wrap over the
Over my mats. Yeah, I have these gorgeous.
Not on the bottom.
Nope, I have these gorgeous cocoa knit blocking mat kit. I put my blocking mats out on my dining room table, and then I put saran wrap over my blocking mats, and then I pin my whatever it is, whether it's a sweater or whatever.
Question, do you have those, you said you had those blocking kits, the mats?
Do you sell those, Kelly? Yeah.
I need to get some of those
They're
from
on
you.
back order, but I'll send you some.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to order some of those from you, because right now what I'm using, which is probably what beginner knitters or crocheters use, I went to Michael's or AC Moore when they were still in business, something, you know, the kid cardboard that you push a pin into for projects.
Mm-hmm.
I have that, and I've just taken pins and stretched and steamed on that. So I'm not using the fancy reel, I guess we're supposed to use as crafters. I'm not using that. So I need that from you, Kelly. And I'll try the saran wrap on top of the mats, and then put your project on top.
And then pin.
And pin it down. Okay, and
so
wet blocking is magic according to Kelly and AFIFA. I will have to try that with this. Thank you.
So saran wrap first, then the knitted project. Not knitted project on those, and then saran wrap on the top. No.
No, the other way. You got your mat, and then you put your saran wrap down, and then you put your project and pin to dry. And the barrier below helps the water to evaporate, and so it does actually. I mean, we live in such I live in Pacifica, which is like we have a fog festival. Like it's a very moist climate here, so drying things is a problem here. So yeah.
Do you think that would make a difference being in Virginia, where I am, Mid-Atlantic? And Bronislava, you know, because you're East Coast too. Right now it's June. Well, honestly, there's no sunlight outside. It's cloudy. I don't know if it's hot and humid, but it gets so nasty and humid out here. Will that, do you think
that definitely affects drying. Humidity affects drying. But I wanted to go and tell you how I block. I don't have all these fancy schmancy things. I have bed for guests, right? So nobody sleeps in there. So that's where I go and block. I just go and take my item, I wet it, I'm actually hand wash it, take towel, gently wring it, not too much, roll it, whatever, squish it, then undo it, take another towel that is dry. Sometimes I do it twice just to remove as much water as possible and moisture. And then I just put it on the bed, on a big towel, and smooth it all out into the shape that I want it, and I let it sit there until it dries. And then also, Lynette, the smell from the sheep, as soon as it's dry, there is no smell. Or, you know, just the smell that you had, you know, like if you take something, you smell it. That's how it, you know, when you go and buy a yarn and you smell the yarn, that's how
Yep.
it should be smelly when it dries. It should not smell worse than it really when you bought the yarn. And this
No, the one I had, it smelled
one
afterwards.
smells a
Like
little bit like sheep.
this.
I would show
This
you what
one,
I
it smells a
show
little
you what
sheep,
I'm doing,
but
but I'm not showing you because this is
I
a
know.
gift. It's a gift,
But this,
and just in case
it's just
somebody
that one yarn.
it is for watches this show, I don't want to. But I want
No,
you
it's
to
just that one.
Have to wet block the sweater when you finish this one.
Okay,
I will challenge
will-
you to wet block it.
I will wet block it. I will wet. You have to send me those mats, Kelly. I gotta make an order with you for the mats after this.
And I also think that each sheep smells, each kind of sheep smells different.
Really?
I love them.
I think
I
so.
agree with that.
I think
Really?
that there are, like, I think that merino sheep smells different from regular sheep or whatever.
And like BFL smells different.
And alpaca smells
Yeah.
different from merino, you know. I think, in my opinion.
How do you wet block, AFIFA?
I have mats, and I used to actually use these flooring mats that I had for my kids' playroom initially because I just didn't want to buy the mats, you know, just the ones that like kind of fit together.
Mhm.
But now I have ones that have grids on them, which is really helpful when when you're shaping it and you want it to be a certain measurement. A lot of times I'll throw stuff in my in the spin cycle in my washer. So I'll wet block it, throw it in just the spin cycle to get all of the excess water out. And then if it's really big, I'll lay it on a towel on my deck. If it's a sweater, I'll put it on my blocking mats. And I use wires and T-pins and stuff as well.
Wires.
I never use those. Never,
Wire.
never pins, never, ever.
Oh, okay.
Wires for what? What is
I'll
that?
show-
Teach me.
Blocking wires.
Yeah, he's going to go and show us something
Yeah.
interesting.
These
So
are
they're
blocking
like
wires.
that. Kelly, will you take one out and kind of flex it so she can see?
So it's basically
So-
a straight wire and
Oh, weird.
So for example, let's say I'm blocking this, right?
yes.
So I'll put a wire on each side
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll just pin on the top and the bottom. You don't have to do a bunch of pins.
Yeah.
And it really, if you want to like really stretch out a stitch pattern, wires are a good way to do it.
Really? Kelly,
Yeah.
I need wires from you too. Well, because I'm about to do a blanket with I'm trying to get through all of my yarn. I need to stop buying yarn and get through what I have. I need wires to keep the edges on this blanket. I know it's going to curl because it's fingering weight. It's going to be a lightweight, extremely large blanket. I'm going to need those too. Do you think maybe all the tools that we get as crafters and knitters and crocheters, that some of it's just not necessary?
It's time, actually, Kelly, it's time to go and say, what is the name of your, we should have said it long time ago, name of your store, if you send people, if anybody buys, and all that stuff. So talk about that.
Okay, so I'm Kelly. My store is called the Royal Bee Yarn Company, located in Pacifica, California. And I also have my own yarn line, which is the Royal Bee Yarn Company Purple Couch Collection. And then another base, which is Woolen Spun, which is the Pacifica Coast Site Collection. Not yet available online, but will be soon.
Okay, so do you, if anybody would like to go and purchase any yarn, do you ship it to them?
Yeah, so we do, we have our online store for the yarn that is our brand, but we also do, like, if you don't live in the area, we'll do personalized virtual shopping sessions, and we can, use Zoom or FaceTime and show people around the shop.
Excellent. Excellent. So we need to go and put all that. You have to send me all the information all the links,
Okay.
everything. So, and AFIFA, it's the same thing with you, with your, and I want you to tell us about your designs. Where do you sell them? Or whatever, anything about your designs.
Go buy them. They're available on Ravelry. And on Instagram, I'm at FIFNets, and that's where you'll hear about anything new that I have coming out. I also put my tester calls out on Instagram, and I have a website, which you will put the link for, but Ravelry is the best way to find me.
Yes.
And I'm going to be offering this pattern for free for any of our watchers with a special code that Bronislava is going to put in the show notes.
Yes, I will. We will have, so ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go and have a special code for AFIFA's design. It's going to be below the video in the description. So look for those, okay? Always look for the links. I always put links below my video. AFIFA, do you also knit for people and anything there, and then you sell the item, or you just sell the patterns?
No, I do not knit for people. I will offer to teach
I understand why.
I
And
don't even knit for my kids.
many knitters will understand why. So everyone, you do need to go and knit your own outfits from
Yes.
FIFA's designs.
I always offer to teach someone if they'll be like, I don't know how to knit and I really want that. In fact, I have a funny story about that. I was wearing this shawl and we had gone to dinner at a friend's, in the olden days when you could do those things. And this one person there kept asking me to sell him the shawl I was wearing. He said, I'll give you whatever you want. I want to buy for my wife. And I said, no, I will teach you or your wife how to knit. But you can't have this because this yarn is not made anymore. The yarn is it was some of the first yarn that I bought. It was one of the first things I ever knit. And I was like, I can't put a value on that.
Mm-hmm.
But he kept insisting. He's like, well, make me another one. And I said, the amount of hours it takes to make something is just not worth it to sell it. I mean, at this point, I have extra samples and things like that I might do a sample sale for, but I would never do a custom order for somebody.
Yes.
But that one is Kelly's because Kelly's very special.
AFIFA made that for the shop.
That's gorgeous.
Yes. Okay, all of you. Do you have anything that you're working on right now? Linnea is working on
Sweater.
a
Sweater.
sweater.
I'm making another wave of change jacket. I'm a broken record. I have made, well, I already have 3 and now I'm on number 4. This one's for my mom. And this is a great local designer, Denise Bayron of Bayron HandMadeRukodelky. But of course, AFIFA's my favorite designer. She's spectacular.
One of these. That's going to be your next one.
You know what? I think it is going to be my next one. I'm going to finish that wave of change jacket for my mom, and then I'm going to do that. And I think that what I'll get your help with is because I like to cover a little bit more of my arm. I'm just wondering whether I can get it down to, kind of, I presumably I can just do repeat until with your pattern.
We can talk about it. I'll help you figure all that out.
All right.
Can I see your arms? Can you lift your arms? Okay, so it's a short sleeve. Okay.
Yeah, so you can, I just added this band on.
Yes.
And Kelly, what you can do is just knit as long as you want before the ribbing starts. So
Okay.
very easy to modify.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm working on lots
So
of
there
things.
are options for people to go and do that. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of options, I do try to add modifications. So I'll say, if you want a longer sleeve, do this. If you want a longer, because it's a very short it comes to my waist, but not everybody wants to wear something that short. So I have a length modification and things like that. Lene, you had
Question.
something?
Yes, for your patterns, is it size inclusive? I hate using that term because everything should be inclusive of everything, but some designers, everything's like a size 0. I'm not a size 0.
I'm not a size 0 either.
When I'm doing little designs, because I am, I'm doing when I'm recording a project, I'm doing just one size because because I don't have time to go through all that process like AFIFA does. So if anyone wants, I'm just teaching people to do certain things through my videos. It's not necessarily that it's going to be a design with many, many different sizes.
Correct. But the pattern, when they purchase one of your patterns at FIFA, it's size. What's the largest size that your patterns go up to?
A 5X.
Sweet.
I go from an extra small to a 5X, so I have 10 different sizes.
Wow.
And I also
That's great.
I don't have them, I don't use letters, I use actual measurements. So for example, this one goes from I believe it's a 34 bust circumference all the way up to a 70.
Okay. I don't like the letter sizing. It can be very confusing.
Yeah, which is why I stopped using it, because it's also not standard. So instead I always try to have 10 sizes, and I will put in the numbers instead of the letters.
Thank you.
Now, so when you go and make a design, right, then you mathematically have to adjust for the sizes, right?
Yep. I have spreadsheets galore.
Yes.
And I have to do swatches.
Let's not talk about it now. Let's go talk about it in the next
video
podcast.
We've been recording for a long time.
Designing. Yes. Yeah. I wanted to show you, I've been working on this for, I don't know, maybe almost 2 years. And I'm going to go and put it as my background. Is it going in there? This is
Granny square blanket?
Granny square, and it's not blankie. It's actually a shawl. It's a shawl. And it's just one very, very simple granny square. And I already do have a video how to make this granny square, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit. What people can go and do with a variegated yarn. So I bought very thin variegated yarn. I think about 10 balls, and started making this. It's taking a long time because it's very thin, so each square takes about 45 minutes to do. And as I'm attaching them as I go. So I just wanted to go and throw this in this podcast just for, for fun.
Never heard of a knitting project taking 2 years.
This is not knitted, this is crocheted.
Crocheted?
Mm-hmm.
That's still a long time. How much longer or how much more are you putting into it?
I'm not doing it all the time. It sits there for half a year.
Oh.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is it for today for our podcast. And we, all 4 of us, that means the Yarntastic 4, would like to say,
let's learn.
Choose great yarn.
And design, and then
knit and crochet.
I think that was the take.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.